Welcome to the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. My name is Lauren Wells, here with my co-host Chris Seveny. We're committed to providing you with the knowledge required to build wealth through real estate investing. Tired of consuming content about real estate? Stuck in analysis paralysis? Ready to do your first deal? As a member of our community, you will learn how to go from consuming content to taking that first step into the world of real estate investing. Our show is not about getting rich quick, but about providing you with the knowledge you need to take action. Join us as we speak with experienced investors who share action tips on how to escape the corporate world, start a thriving side hustle in the world of real estate, and go beyond your W-2 or 401k.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast, where each week we bring you education and information that will help you take your next step in building wealth through real estate. I'm Chris Seveny, and today, along with my co-host Lauren Wells, we're joined by Dean Rogers. For those who don't know, Dean began his career in the NFL with the Chargers, and then he soon realized after he kept playing with his health at stake, he started getting involved in real estate right around the same time I did, around 2013, out in California. Since that time, he has built a successful wholesale business as well as fix and flip business, where he now has a portfolio in the tens of millions. He's a person like ourselves who's very passionate about real estate and helping others learn how to build wealth through freedom. So, Lauren, Dean, how are you two doing today?
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing well. We finally are cooling off here in California, at least where I'm
located. I know. The heat wave, we were all just panicking with all this heat we had.
Yeah, we don't do anything above like 75 with a light breeze. So I'm excited. I've got sweater weather, we're good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Here on the East Coast, you'll wake up, it's about 50 to 55, and then it'll creep up to about 75, 80 during the day. So you kind of get the brisk mornings and then the, afternoons with t-shirt weather. So
nice.
So we wanted to talk to you today, Dean. We got several topics for the people who are listening, but we really want to touch upon the story of Dean and how he built his successful real estate business, because as some people may assume Dean in his career was around some high net worth people, but that's not how he built his career. He built it outside of that, which all the props and respect to you. We'll talk about his business, also talk a little bit about his getting private lending and some differences between private lending and hard money lending as well, because there is a difference, which a lot of people ask and have asked us. And the explanation I heard from Dean was one that I wanted to steal, to be honest. So, Dean, thanks for joining us, and I'll let you kind of, tell us a little bit about what you got going on today, and then we can, work back to how you got there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, we'll start with where we're at today. So today, gone through quite the journey, and I think the biggest thing that I preach to people is like, what got me here isn't some special story, like where I came from money, or like we talked about before we started the show. I didn't go to my NFL buddies and say, "Hey, Philip Rivers, spot me $5,000. I want to go start buying properties." It was just from being disciplined. And that's one of the biggest things I just keep preaching is it's about discipline. And what discipline does is it allows you to be consistent with doing the work. Because using the analogy of sports, what allowed me to get to the NFL was being disciplined. It wasn't that I was the fastest. It wasn't that I was the strongest. It wasn't that I was, the first round draft pick. It was the fact that I was disciplined to put in the work every single day, whether my legs were tired or my tummy hurt or it didn't feel like it, right? Whatever it was, I still continue to put in the work. So where we're at today now, Chris, is, like you mentioned, real estate portfolio of rental properties of about $10 million, and then active wholesaling and fix and flipping business of multiple seven figures. And man, I just love real estate, love talking about it. And we've built a team of 8 people now, several of which are, acquisition managers focused on that, an office manager, some supporting team members, and then my partner and I. So we're a team of 8, and just super passionate about connecting with other good people and growing my network. And, I've started a coaching program now because I am so passionate about it, and he kept having people ask like, hey, can you mentor me, coach me? And so I've been doing that as well. And it's just fun. I want to be doing and talking about real estate all day.
So did you always have that passion for real estate, or, is when you're younger, or did you have, when did that itch come from?
Yeah. What's your aha moment? That's what I call it.
Well, the aha moment was when I was done playing football, just to touch on the past a little bit. And I started working in the corporate world, right? Hung up the cleats, started the corporate world, and went from a 7-figure contract to now a $65,000 salary, right? I started all over, started from scratch. And so for me, working in that for a year, I realized like, you know what, this is easy. I remember just like spinning in my chair, like, wow, I get to sit at a desk and like slap this keyboard around. This is the easiest job I've ever had. I'm used to working away for, hours on end, putting in the hardest physical labor I could possibly do. And so I thought it was so easy, and I worked my butt off. That's what I always did best. And at the end of the year, they're like, great work, man. You're so good. We're going to give you a big salary increase of $2,000. You're now at $67,000. And I was like, oh my God, this is getting me nowhere fast. And just had a my gut dropped, like, oh my God, like that's it. That's all I got. Oh man. So I got on Google and searched how to get started in real estate. And
what year was this? Just to like put this into context.
This is 2000, probably late 2012, before 2013. This is like December 2012. Okay.
Just roughly got done with football at the time.
Gosh, what was I? I had to have been 25 or so.
Okay.
So did that good old Google search and found a free podcast, Sean Terry's Flip to Freedom podcast. And I was like, in an unhealthy way, so obsessed. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I need. Oh man, where's this been? And so I got started from there. And that was the aha moment. I did my first deal within 3 months of just taking massive action every single day and just consistently doing it. And that was the eye opener for me there.
So one question I had is you harped upon early on the commitment and the consistency. And I think that is something that's always required for anyone to continued success. A lot of times people ask me, what does that look like when you say you want to maintain consistency, or you want to be passionate about it and stay on that course? For your business, when you're getting started, to grow that business, because I'm guessing you didn't go from zero to multi-millions overnight. I'm sure there's a time that we can talk about, but when you started out, when you talk about being consistent and obsessed, what were you doing?
Yeah, that's literally what I was just going to ask, is like, you said you woke up every day and took massive action. I'm like, great. What was that action? Because I feel like people are always, that's something I always would ask. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah. So it doesn't look too exciting from the outside because it's not super fast, right? I think that's one of the misconceptions that's probably sold online as the get rich overnight thing. And for me, it wasn't get rich overnight. And I haven't even had, some people have some stories of how, they made $1 million on one deal and stuff like that. I'm either playing too small or I just haven't played the right games yet, but I just consistently produce, multiple 6 figures a month and just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And so that's me. I'm Mr. Consistent. I think what it looks like when you're just getting started and even when you got all the wheels turning is, it's not like I had the Rocky Balboa music playing and I woke up and I ran, down the street and there was a property over there and like, I want that one. And I bought it. Like, it's just not really how it works, So for me, it was, okay, well, I'm going to listen to this podcast today and I'm going to continue to learn and be really intentional about learning, because I could just casually listen to it and not really be that focused. But I remember before I did my first deal, that first 3 months, remember waking up at 2 a.m. because I wanted to re-listen to the podcast episode that talked about filling out the contract. Like, how exciting is that? But I was so obsessed that like, I knew it was really important for me to know word by word how to fill this contract out. And I didn't have YouTube to show me like click by click typing it in. It was just a free audio podcast. So for me, I was listening and like pausing it and going back to the paper, writing it out on the paper, and then unpausing it to make sure, the free contract I downloaded from Sean Terry, I understood how to fill it out. So just by doing those little small things and continuing to add new things. Okay. The next was, well, how do I market to these people? That's the most important thing, is to generate leads or deals, which lead to deals. I could either find them on the MLS or like multiple handfuls of other ways to find deals. And I wanted to do it the way Sean was doing it, because I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I didn't want to have to go to listen to somebody else on how they were doing it. I want to know how Sean's doing it because he's awesome, right? So I just followed what he was doing, and he was doing direct mail. Okay, well, I need to learn how to do direct mail. So he walked me through how to go to listsource.com, click by click. I'm doing the same thing. I'm in the internet and I'm pausing it, and then I'm clicking on the thing and going to the next step. And it was just continuing to do that and adding new layers to it, and then doing it, right? Now I sent out the mail pieces. I scrounged up some money. All right, I'm putting this towards marketing. Let's hope it works. And what do you know? Calls started coming in, and I answered my phone, right? That's the next step, answer your phone. And then I just kept starting to work these leads, which turned into another deal. And then I reinvested it back into marketing. So it was just building on itself. And it wasn't this big, massive, oh, I just bought 5 properties within my first month, but it was just being consistent about continuing to learn and continuing to do the small things which lead to deals. And along the way, learning the skills and continuing to listen to negotiation techniques and how do deals come together? How do you talk to the escrow companies? Just all these little things that are important that make a well-rounded investor.
One of the things that resonates with what you just said, I think that people listening, if they're looking to kind of be more active versus passive in some roles, is you didn't try to do everything at once, meaning you would basically be like a sponge and try and absorb this information, but you also broke it down into pieces of what is important or pertinent that I need to learn or do now, and did that step by step. Because I think a lot of people will go and they'll listen to 50 different podcasts on the same topic. They'll try and get too much information, and then they just suffer from analysis paralysis, and they end up making no decisions or no movement because they're thinking they're trying to do something that really you don't do till you're about 3 years in the business, and they're trying to implement that in their business now, where they're missing the, those common, no pun intended, but the blocking and tackling of your business is what you really need to focus on.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I can't preach enough. And there's lots of other different investment strategies, right? But if you're looking to go buy an investment property that you're either going to wholesale or fix and flip or keep as a rental, the first and foremost thing you need to do is learn how to get a deal, right? How do you actually get a deal? How do you attract leads towards you? And there's, of course, multiple strategies there. So it's just getting focused around that.
Yeah. So what was your first deal?
Yeah. So my first deal was actually following one of the episodes Sean Terry had was about how you could find pre-foreclosure houses on HUDhomestore.com. And these were FHA loans that were going into foreclosure. They had their own special website, HUDhomestore.com, where the government was involved in these loans, Freddie, Fannie Mae loans. And they would first auction them off within the first 30 days to owner occupants or nonprofits. Okay. And these weren't at the courthouse steps. These were on their own online auction. After 30 days, investors could place bids on these houses. So I'd go into the website and do the filter for, investor, and then just look at the properties and then bid on them, just like Sean Terry told me to. And I even listened to him so specifically that I was even bidding on houses that were in his market in Phoenix, which were the same properties he was bidding on. So that's how literal and specific I listened to him. And lo and behold, I followed it. I got the first property under contract. I started looking for buyers on Craigslist to wholesale the property, and wasn't finding someone, quick enough. And so I got clever and I went to Sean Terry's website, because he talked about it on his podcast. And I went and filled out the form like I was the seller with the property information. And then his acquisition guy called me. And so then I told him what was up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll put you in touch with Sean. He'll get this taken care of." So he gave, Sean my number, and Sean called me. Sean Terry's calling me. And now I'm like, a fanboy, getting all excited, just like the random, boy or girl who was standing outside the locker room wanting my autograph, even though, they probably didn't even know who I was. But I was, super excited. And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, no worries. I'll take care of it." So he got it sold within a couple of days, and boom, got the deal closed. We technically co-wholesaled it, and there I was closing my first deal.
Awesome.
Well, I'd say as part of that, though, one of the things that, again, resonates a little bit is you got the deal under wraps. It wasn't working for you. So you went and asked for help, essentially. You went to somebody and asked for help. And I think in real estate, sometimes egos get caught in the way of a lot of people, and they don't want to ask for help, or they want to take it on themselves and end up getting themselves in a lot more trouble down the line. Yes. So, it's interesting. Again, your first deal, basically you went and asked for help, and it's just something that I think more people should do as they get into this business. So.
Chris, I love this topic because I was kind of the same way, even though I was, brave enough to do it then. Right. I think a lot of people get trapped in, like, they put it on their blinders. They're staying in their own world. They're kind of afraid, or maybe even, having a little bit of a fragile ego to ask for help, because they don't want to be perceived as someone who doesn't have it together, or they're not doing that well, or whatever it is. And the thing I preach the most now is the quickest way to get success is to actually get help from those who are experienced, right? Sean Terry, the OG legend, like, that was the smartest thing I possibly could have done there. Otherwise, I would have probably remained stuck and maybe even frustrated and discouraged. But because I went to someone experienced who knew how to get it done, he accelerated my success in an opportunity that would have just fallen apart because I wasn't able to get it done myself. So I say to everybody new, go to the experienced person who's going to maybe even shorten that learning curve, help you get a successful deal done, and create a new relationship that's with someone who's experienced, and make it more valuable for everyone involved. And that's just, I mean, there's so much value there.
Have you worked with Sean Terry since?
We did a couple deals. So we did a couple deals. And besides that, we haven't done any other deals beyond that, my first handful of deals. But I won't say that it's over yet, because I just joined a mastermind that he's a part of. So there's, when I see him, I'm going to
alongside of him now.
Now I'm going to be alongside of him. Yeah. I'm going to be a peer. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Which was the whole
fanboy to colleague.
Yes. Right. So when I see him, I'm going to give him a big old hug and everything like that, which I'm sure he'll love, and start growing our relationship even more. Because there's just so many opportunities to work with other people. And that's what's exciting when you get around people that have the abundant mindset, is they recognize that there's enough deals for everybody. And there's an exponential factor when you work with other people who are driven, motivated, have the right values, that it actually opens up more opportunity than you could do it on your own. And I think that's what's so exciting as I've grown and matured through my career and done that and seen it really pay off, that when you get around others that are doing the same, it's makes it so much more fun too.
I'm still actually getting over the fact, is it more digest that, you had the contract and then you basically took like a 95% pay cut. And now you're in a much better place, a decade later, but to go from where you were, salary wise all the way down and then have the consistency to grow, because I think one of the misconceptions is, not everybody who plays a professional sport is making, tens of millions of dollars, the highest people do, but the average salaries is much lower. And then when you get back into that corporate world, it can be, extremely challenging. So from that growth, just very interesting. It kind of leads into where I wanted to ask next is, so, you started in this business and so forth. How long did it take before you thought, oh, this is taking off? Or it started to take off?
Yeah, it took a couple of years. Everyone's got a different path. And that's one of the things that's hard in today's world is comparing yourself to others. Your path might be faster than others. Your path might be slower. There's so many different factors at play. It might be because of your effort. It might be because of outside factors that are out of your control. It might be just the opportunities and luck that kind of fell in your lap, right? There's so many different things that come into play. And for me, man, the first year I did, a handful and a half or so of deals, almost 2 handfuls. And they were great, and it was exciting. And I knew it was the direction I needed to go. And then my next year, my second year in the business, I opened up that year getting started in flips. My now business partner, I was now wholesaling deals at the time. And he's like, hey, you're really good at finding deals. Like, you want to do flips together? I was like, yeah, that sounds great. It's kind of the next thing I wanted to do. And funny enough, he was like, you know what? It's kind of getting slow here in Central California. You were doing some deals in Phoenix, right? You want to do some flips over there? You got some contacts and stuff. Oh, sure. Yeah. Let's do some flips there. It's gone well for me so far. So we did all the rookie mistakes. Now he's a seasoned investor. He's got experience flipping and being very successful. And he kind of jokes that he kind of felt like anything he touched would turn into gold at that time, because he was just on a super hot streak of doing everything perfect. So we kind of rushed into buying 6 houses within a month, right? Going back to the joke of, I didn't buy a bunch of houses. This is year 2.
Okay.
Beginning of year 2. And so we bought 6 houses right away. 4 of them turned out perfectly fine. We made money. And the other 2, which were the first 2 we bought, had all the rookie mistakes attached to it. We had bad contractors because we didn't validate and get the right references and do our due diligence thoroughly enough. Even though we met him in person, we're like, his name's good enough. We didn't check references and do all that. The realtors we were using to help us locate the properties gave us bad comps. This side of the street, the houses were perfect. This side of the street, not so much. Didn't sell for the same value. And we were on the other side. So it was like all these combination of things stacked on each other to where we ended up losing $100,000 on those 2 properties. Like, talk about a gut punch of starting basically over, starting this new career, getting some success and some trajectory in the right direction. And then talk about taking some steps backwards to kind of have to dig myself out of now.
Wait, on that note, this actually brings me to an interesting question. So when you were in your first year, were you still working a full-time job?
Yeah.
And when did you leave that job?
Yeah. So I was there for still several years going and working through all this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like that's important for people to know, because I think, like you said, you talked about people compare themselves to other people's journeys and progression. And, there are some people that leave their job super early on, whether that's because they, just ramp up so quick or whatever it might be, or they have family help or support, whatever it is. But I think a lot of people don't talk about how, hey, I worked my job for years before I went all in. Yeah, Chris is raising his hand. But yeah,
Friday, 4 more days. 4 more days.
Yep.
So I had a quick question: whose money did you lose when you lost $100,000?
That's a great question. So I didn't have $100,000 to lose at the time. I just didn't. And so my partner and I, when he said, hey, you want to do flips? I'm like, hey, I don't really have I'm not the big, guy sitting on money right now. I left my contract of 7 figures. I didn't leave with my 7 figures, right? So he's like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. You just bring the deals and I'll fund the deal. So we use a hard money lender, right? And he put down the down payment and I did the rest of kind of the sweat equity work type of stuff. So technically speaking, the money we lost was my partner's money, right? It was his down payment plus some on top because of the fact we were at a negative. So he was floating that money and now he was kind of faced, even though he didn't really ask me face to face, he was kind of faced with wondering, like, is this guy going to stick around and like pony up the half on this, or is he just going to peace out? Because that's a big gut punch when you're new to the game. And what did I do? I picked myself up, I got to work, started focusing on getting more deals. And that's what we did. The next year just focused on, paying the bills and paying back my partner as we worked through doing deals back in our market, which is where we should have started anyways. And that was kind of a slow roll. I think that we maybe did 15 or so odd flips, that year, and basically paid it back. And then after that, it was like, all right, we got a clear runway. Let's get to work now. And then, we scaled it to about 30. Next year, scaled it to about 50, then about 70. Then we scaled it to 100 and, took it to doing that many flips. And then we got to a point where we just felt like it was a law of diminishing returns. We'd have 20 flips going at a time and just like cranking on these things. And instead of like maxing out our profit, it felt like we were kind of chipping away at our profit because we were going over time, over budget. And my partner, he's a hustler, he's a go-getter, but he's not Mr. Detailed, organized guy who we kind of needed for managing so many projects at a time. And while I was working on marketing and acquisitions and closing deals, he was out running around going to projects and meeting sellers, right, in person if we needed to sign that contract. So then we decided to pivot, get into wholesaling. And
what year was the pivot?
The pivot was 2019. So we were cranking on flips until then, and then realized actually in 2018 that I was on this hamster wheel. All this money was going out to flips and then it would come back in and then more would go out, right? I felt broke all the time. If I had 30 grand in the bank account, I felt like, all right, we'll make it through this month. And
that's 9 years. That was like what, 7 years into it?
Yeah, 6, 7 years.
Yeah. And so again, I realized,
I just like to contextualize all of this for people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, and by the way, I had another boo-boo along the way too. So, as I was going through, in 2000, I want to say 17, I just got out of this hole. Now we're cranking, we're making some money. It's like, all right, life is looking bright and beautiful. I'm ready to take things to the next level. So I'm living in San Diego, right? I had actually, when I started corporate, moved up to San Francisco. I moved back to San Diego, and I've now got a community investors here too. And I'm thinking, man, I want to invest here in San Diego, where I'm living as well. And so there was someone in the community who, to cut to the punchline, was basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like he was working with a lot of other people in the community, that everyone knew, liked, and trusted, but he was slowly but surely like building this Ponzi scheme of taking people's money, putting it on a project, and then saying, he had it recorded and it was secured, and then he'd borrow other people's money and do all this crazy stuff. And it ended up blowing up soon after he asked me to come in on a project. Hey, I got this new construction deal, and it's ready to go. Like as soon as you buy into this deal, I'm going to develop the one right next door and we'll build this together, basically hand in hand. And here's what the numbers look like. Everything is in place, plans, permits, everything's approved. And the short version of the story is day one, I bought it. It was all a lie. It started to unravel as I started to call the architects and the civil engineers and the hard money lender that was in place. it was all just a total S storm, and all fell apart. And I had to fix all these problems of these people that were unpaid. And I ended up losing $187,000 on that one deal. And I didn't move one piece of dirt. Imagine buying a piece of dirt to do a project, working on all these disasters, right? For about a year, and then coming out of it on the other side, losing 187. Like, it was just gut wrenching and so painful. And the biggest lesson I preach to everybody that hears me tell the story is all it would have taken is one more phone call. I would have called the civil engineer. Hey, are these plans proved and ready to go? I've told these things in front of me are accurate. Is that true? If I would have called the hard money lender, which I actually knew and had the cell phone to one of the main people. Hey, you're cool with me coming in on this deal, right? I was told this is the green light. No, actually, no, this is not a good deal. This is falling apart. Oh, that would have saved me a lot of pain. So, just that one extra phone call, but, I had to learn the lesson, I guess. God said, hey, this is a lesson you need to learn. And this is the time for you to learn it right before, your firstborn child. And so here you go. And so I went through that. And then in 2018, a light bulb went off. I'm on this hamster wheel and I'm not building wealth. I'm earning money. I'm making a good living, but I'm not really creating wealth. The wealth that I wanted to create by being in the NFL and buying houses for my family and having generational wealth, like the dreams that I had, I need to buy rental properties. Like, that's what's going to get me there. So some of the flips we already had were like, okay, this one, that one, these are going to be rentals now. And then we started. So the first year in 2018, we bought 18 rentals, and then just started buying from there. And now we're, at 60 rentals, and, anything else that makes sense, we'll, add it to the portfolio. But that light bulb moment went off. And then, as I mentioned, 2019, we realized we're really good at finding deals, but not good at doing too many flips. So let's wholesale, buy rentals, and then some easy flips here and there. And that's been the magic kind of recipe for us ever since.
Have you changed? And I'm sure I know the answer to this, but have you changed your kind of, obviously with COVID, real estate saw a crazy boom. With where we're at now, how's that changed since 2019?
Yeah. So 2019, we actually, started doing the wholesaling and building more relationships with buyers and doing all that kind of stuff that you need to do when you're wholesaling properties. And then in 2020, had the great idea, you know what? People know us, they know we're doing deals, but I don't feel like they know us like on a deep personal level. Let's start a meetup. This will be the thing that we need to do is we need to start a meetup, an in-person meetup, February 14th or whatever it is. It wasn't Valentine's Day, February, whatever.
In a month
is our first in-person meetup.
Got one at least.
We had 100 people show up, great turnout. And okay, we're on to something. This is going to be what's going to help us deepen relationships in our community and open up these new doors. Abundance mindset, right? And then the second meetup is scheduled and planned for March, and it's shut down. Like, I'm about to get on my flight in a couple of days and the news drops, right? So I realized, okay.
Were these meetups up in Central
California? Yep.
Okay.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, how the heck are we gonna continue connecting with people, right? And a lot of people were obviously driven to the internet and looking for information and more podcasts and stuff. So I continued to do some virtual meetups and would have great turnouts, and that was going well, but it still wasn't developing into I want relationships where I'm making an impact and someone's making an impact on me. Like, I want to do deals with people, right? I want to kind of open this up and do more deals. So I guess I got clever at the time and started posting about the stuff we were doing and providing just social proof. Like, hey guys, look at these deals we're doing. Hey, I found this deal this way. Hey, this deal this was a tough deal. We started, we had to negotiate it like this, and this problem came up, and just started sharing stories and also sharing success. Like, hey, look at this deal we closed. We just got this wire for 20,000 or whatever it was. And, people started taking notice and getting kind of excited about it. And then it developed into the idea of, well, guys, if you guys need help with deals, let us know how we can help. If you have a qualified lead and you need help with negotiating with the seller or going on the appointment, or, just making contact with them, getting it under contract, selling it to a buyer for top dollar, handling the whole escrow process, we'll literally help you with anything. And we'll split it 50-50 with you. Like, whether you're brand new or experienced, we'll just help you get this deal done. We'll maximize the deal by negotiating it really well, selling it for top dollar, and making sure it doesn't fall apart in escrow. And people started getting excited about that. And slowly but surely, it wasn't a landfall, but people started reaching out and asking for help. And then I would show online, hey guys, look at the success we're having with other people. Look, we just closed this deal and made 40,000. We each made 20. Like, this is super fun. And then it developed into, I love sending friends money. Like, I'm making new friends. And how cool is it when you send friends money? And then it turned into friends with benefits. So I started branding it Friends with Benefits, and people loved it.
Awesome.
Like, everybody laughs about it. You get one of our company mugs if you close a deal with us. I'm actually not wearing it, but I have a shirt that says Friends with Benefit on the back. And people love it. So now you're in the friend zone until we do a deal. And then if we do a deal, we're friends with benefits and you get a shirt. So people absolutely love it. And it's just fun to talk about. So now we have people like reaching out to us. Hey, I want to do a friends with benefits deal. How can I get one of those shirts? I'm like, you got to earn it. And so that's at that last year alone, it added $1 million of revenue to our business just by branding that and talking about it on social media. Remember, I'm a virtual investor. I'm not physically there, shaking hands and rubbing shoulders at escrow with people. Like, I'm just here online talking to people and telling them what I'm doing. And that in itself added 7 figures to our business. And I feel like the sky's the limit. Like, we're just still barely scratching the surface. And like I said, doing deals with other people and having that abundance mindset is so much fun, because now these relationships are that much more meaningful, that much more valuable from both sides. And it all stemmed from the standpoint of like, let me add value to other people and not necessarily expect anything in return, but let me just add value to people. And as people come and receive, they end up reciprocating too, because they want to give value at some point in time. And that just becomes like a super beautiful, magical thing that is really rewarding.
I'm just laughing, Lauren. I'm just visualizing you speaking on the phone with like an investor who's like 85 years old and telling them about our friends with benefits.
Yeah.
I know. Like, we have a very different target audience over here.
Yeah. Well, one of our guys who we've done multiple deals with and just closed a $50,000 deal 2 weeks ago. He said, he loves wearing the shirt, but his grandma will kind of look at him funny, like, what's that all about? But besides that, like, people love it. And I'll wear it, just out in public, and people will just stop me and be like, yo, what's this all about? It's kind of an attention grabber. It's become fun.
So just curious now, based off of, post-COVID, you've started doing some, you've got a course, some mentoring training. As things kind of, the dust starts to settle post-COVID now, with interest rates, creeping up or exploding, some would say, and, talks of some softening and so forth, are you changing anything as part of your business, or kind of you just, seeing what happens and somewhat reacting to it, or, what's your
Great
next
question.
steps?
So for us, I think, we're fortunate to kind of be out ahead of everything, because we're on the front lines talking with sellers. We're seeing how they're reacting. And then we're also on the, kind of the second line of people with the buyers who are buying deals from us and seeing how they're reacting. What's their sentiment on things? And I'd say, generally speaking, people are being a little cautious, but they maybe at this point where we're at right now have also seen that the sky hasn't fallen. So, you know what, like, hey, I'm going to be conservative. I'm not going to be the prior real estate market kind of stage where everybody was just thinking it's going to the moon. And so people are being a little bit more cautious. And so for us, when we go through our analysis, we're just going to be conservative on what we call our ARV, the after repair value. And so if the property was worth 300,000, based on the comps, maybe we'll say it's 275, and we'll just be very conservative and just keep it at that. And if people are looking at the same numbers as us, they'll probably feel comfortable and confident on the numbers. And so we've been able to sell our properties.
Oh, I just didn't know if we were going to circle back to the hard money lending versus private lending.
Yeah. So I wanted to circle back on that a little bit, because I did hear when you were speaking on another podcast, you were talking about, some hard money lending and private money lending and what your preference is, why, and explaining that. So I'd love for you to share some of your experiences in dealing with that.
Yeah. So I've done it both ways, both hard money and private money. Certainly done much more private money in like the hundreds of transactions. Whereas on hard money, I've done, maybe a couple dozen. And so the biggest differences when it comes to hard money and private money is, first and foremost, hard money, it's an actual institution. It's an organization that was created both around, law and its intent from day one to lend money to real estate investors. So it's actually a beautiful thing. It's like actually easy. You don't have to awkwardly ask, hey, are you maybe lending money? It's like, no, that's what they do. They're looking for more of you, and they want to lend you their money because they borrowed it from someone else, right? And they might be giving them a nice conservative preferred return, and then they'll go lend that money out and charge a little bit more and charge some points for administration, and so they can make a buck. And so it's awesome, right? Hard money lenders are great. The only thing with hard money lenders is they're an institution, they're an organization, they're more corporatized in the fact that they have a process they need to go through. They take it through an underwriting process, they review your deal, and they have a big stack of paper that you ultimately have to sign, promising that you're going to pay them back. Otherwise, you're in big trouble, right? And so, hard money lenders are great. It just has a little bit more rigor to it in the fact that you have to go through their process, which in most cases means it might take you a couple weeks to close escrow by using a hard money lender. Okay. So which is generally speaking still pretty fast, but in terms of a private money lender, what's so beautiful about a private money lender is this is someone who has funds that wants to invest their money as a passive investor. Okay. They want to place their funds into something, and they want it to be something that's secure and something they understand, right? What are their options? They have retirement accounts, they have the stock market, they have assets like, crypto, which you could say is kind of like the stock market. But there's also real estate, which is a tried and true investment, something physical you can see. Okay. It's not a paper asset like stocks, which can, drop to zero overnight. And it's something that people understand. Okay. Because everybody knows it, lives in a house, and it just makes sense to them. And like banks, that private investor still secures their investment against the property. Okay. So the mortgage you would get against the property and shows up on title that the bank has a mortgage is the same thing that a passive investor would do, and the same thing that a hard money lender would do. So if like and trust somebody as a private money lender and see that, let's say Dean is flipping houses. Well, if Dean can give me 7 to 10% return, well, that's a really good return. And now that sounds like a good investment for me or for them, where they can tie their money to the property and get that passive return. So they're not going to take on the risk of having to flip it or do anything like that. And for me as the borrower, I have so much more flexibility now, because it's just like me calling you, Chris, and saying, hey, do you have $200,000 you want to put on this property? I'm ready to close tomorrow. The escrow company puts the paperwork together and sends it over. And if we both sign it and you send your money, we can close that quick. I mean, we just closed escrow a week and a half ago in 24 hours using a private lender, which that wouldn't be possible with a hard money lender. So ultimately, a private lender is just a person like you and me that has money and wants to secure it against real estate and get that return. And that just, for me as the borrower, creates so much more flexibility. I mean, some of my lenders, I might have had an initial conversation with and built a relationship, but now I just send them a text message. Hey, I got a property, need to borrow $200,000. You good for it? They're like, yeah, sounds good. Just connect me with escrow. And that's it. You know, like they don't even necessarily want to know the address or like the numbers on it. Like they're good for it, you know? So that's the power of building those relationships with the private lenders and the flexibility it creates for you.
So I was going to ask, with the private lenders, how did you source them? You know, did you meet them at, didn't meet them at meetups, you know, and it was during probably COVID for some of them during that time. So just curious, how, what advice would you give to people, or how did you meet your private lenders?
Yeah. So back in 2014, I'm doing my direct mail marketing, right? I'm getting started in the business, and my partner asked me if I want to do flips. And I'm like, well, I don't really have, money available at the time. And quite honestly, I didn't really understand the whole private money, hard money thing yet. I was just focused on wholesaling. Didn't even really know about it. But I was just starting to learn a little bit about it and understood that you could buy houses with none of your own money. You could actually use other people's money, OPM, and insert in private lender. And so I had been sending marketing out and had one of my leads call me and say, hey, I don't want to sell my house at 123 Main Street, but I've got $3 million in the bank. What could you, do for me on that? So, well, I could give you a 10% annualized return. He's like, great. When can we meet? I'd love to meet at one of your properties. I said, cool. Let's get together like this Thursday. He said, by the way, is it cool if I bring one of my friends? He's got more money than me too. I said, that sounds great to me. You guys both come on over. We'll meet you there. So, he had millions of dollars in the bank. His friend had millions of more dollars in the bank, and they were just good old boys in town who were experienced and seasoned investors who were wanting to do passive investments at this point. And years later, we did hundreds of deals with just them. We didn't really need other private lenders. There was maybe, a handful of other private lenders that we would sprinkle in here and there as we develop relationships and wanted to get their money working and build that relationship. But man, there was hundreds of deals we did just with those initial two guys. And that's just the power of private lending. I mean, think about all the other things you can do if you have access to money in terms of other types of deals, or just doing the next one. And so that was a, huge opportunity and was a blessing.
Curiosity, you mentioned direct mail. How much were you spending a month on direct mail? Out of curiosity, if you remember roughly?
Yeah, when I got started, it was $1,000 a month type of a deal. Okay. And shoot, now, we'll spend $10,000+ a month. It's certainly changed. If I knew what I knew now back then, I probably would have been spending $10,000 a month on direct mail when it wasn't as, competitive and not as many people were doing it, because it probably would have been, that much more lucrative. But at the time, the budget we had, that's what we were doing, and, worked great.
Yeah, that's a common question I see a lot of people ask. That do in our business, a little different with the mortgage notes. We basically, people go out to private lenders looking, hey, you looking to sell the loan you're holding, to cash it out for something else. And, it's a question. And I usually tell people, you got to spend thousands, because some people will try and start with a low budget of a few $100. And unfortunately, it's probably not going to get you very far in that, because it's really something where you got to cast a wide net. So that's why I was curious.
Absolutely.
Cool. Lauren, final thoughts as we wrap up this episode?
I don't have any. I mean, I think it was really good to hear and see you kind of map out how you started, how you're working your job still, just that progression. Again, I feel like the transparency is really good for a lot of people to see, especially today when people are thinking, especially, I don't know if you're on TikTok or any of the other social media channels, but you see these people who are like, oh yeah, like I made this much overnight. And that's great. That's probably, maybe that's their story, but that's probably the rarer of cases. So it's good to see, and kind of see the other side of it.
Yeah, I try to keep it real because people, they see all the flashy stuff online and, oh, this person, got rich so fast, or they've been just getting richer and richer. They're so stinking rich. And most people, especially ones that are like pushing hard and trying to get to those next levels, make mistakes, right? And they get knocked down and get hurt really bad. I mean, usually when I go around and tell my story of how I lost, $187,000, there's plenty of people that are like, oh, like sick to the stomach. But occasionally there'll be a person like, I lost $1 million, and I'm like, okay, you took the cake, you win, So there's all sorts of different stories and different experiences, but everyone's got their own path, their own journey. But if you just stay consistent and just work your butt off, you'll definitely have breakthroughs, and you can and will have success. But most people, like you've probably seen those memes where someone's digging for gold and they give up. Oh, it doesn't work for me. And they're walking away when gold's just right there on the other side. And so you just got to stick with it.
Yeah. My concern has been the last few years has been good for pretty much anybody in real estate.
Yeah.
And now that I think times are going to get a little more challenging, I think people have found, oh, this is easy. And the moment somebody thinks real estate is easy is when, sometimes you're gonna be a little more, people gotta be careful, because when I'm on Bigger Pockets a lot and so forth, and reading some of the things people do on there, and some of the things they are doing, having, my career has been in real estate for 25 plus years. I kind of, shriek a little bit on some of the things I see people doing, or some of the things people are paying over the last year, especially on, I'll say short-term rentals. I think is probably the one that I think is, the scariest for me. And, hopefully people, again, make it through at the end of the day, but, just as quickly as you can earn it, you can lose it, unfortunately, as well. So
true.
Yeah. Well, Dean, any final thoughts as we wrap up this episode?
No, I just appreciate you guys having me on. Like I said, love real estate and passionate to talk about it. So for anybody that's on the fence, whether they want to do it or they're just trying to figure out that next breakthrough, usually it starts with reaching out and connecting with other people, right? So that you can either get the motivation or find that answer to have that breakthrough and get that first deal, or to take things to the next level. So the answers are out there and the right people are out there. So find relationships and build connections with other good people in your market, and you'll see things take off.
I think that's like a key thing that I've heard from almost everyone we've interviewed or spoken to, is like, find someone to talk to, find someone who does what you want to be doing, and like reach out to them. So it's just so interesting that comes up from no matter who we speak to, whatever industry they're in, that keeps coming up. So I think that's great advice.
And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah. So you can either go to deanrogers.com and click the tab at top that says connect. You'll see all my social media stuff on there. So, Dean Rogers Real Estate for Instagram, or youtube.com/Dean Rogers. But deanrogers.com will have all the stuff for you if you want to connect with me. And please reach out, get connected with me. This game is all about relationships. So it could be just one conversation that sparks something that gives you that idea, or again, opens up that new door. So you got to reach out.
Cool. Lauren, I'll let you wrap it up.
Oh, okay. Thanks everybody for joining us today on this episode of Creating Wealth Simplified. If you like the show, subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave us a review. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining Lauren and I on this episode of the Creating Wealth Simplified podcast. Each week, we bring you expert education, experience, and information in a digestible format to help you identify investment opportunities so you can build wealth through real estate and take action toward your financial goals. Enjoy the show, share with a friend, or subscribe to the show and leave us a review.